I'm located in Boston. With me on the line are Elmer Moore, who's the leader of Scale Up Milwaukee in Milwaukee, and Dan Lawton, and I'll get him to introduce himself in just a second. Just to remind everybody what Scale Up Milwaukee is, we're a platform for changing the conversation of entrepreneurship to be oriented towards growth. Growth is what's important. Growth of companies is what's important if we want to drive economies forward. Scale Up Milwaukee has been actually having its impact for the last year on the dialogue around how companies enter into relatively rapid growth trajectories. And so, for example, we recently helped the Scale Up UK project get going in the United Kingdom, and they referred very fondly to Scale Up Milwaukee as one of their inspirations. So with no further ado, we have these hangouts from time to time. We're going to keep it to 10 minutes. So with me is Dan Lawton. Dan he and I wrote a Harvard Business Review article a couple of months ago called How to Finance Your Scale Up. So Dan, who is Dan Lawton so that he can talk about financing your growth company?
Dan, thank you. I'm delighted to be here. Hello, everybody. I am currently chairman and founding CEO of a company called Promentis Pharmaceuticals. We've worked Promentis from an idea stage. About 6 years ago, took a very, very promising piece of neuroscience and have in the last 5 or 6 years really built a company around it. And I think for the purposes of this discussion, Dan, what's interesting, have taken it from that idea stage to a second stage and are really now at a point where we've raised our second round of equity financing and are really seeing this idea take shape in the world and the prospective products associated with this idea take shape in the world.
And I don't know if it's public information, but how much equity financing are we talking about?
About $2 million in the first round and another $3 million in the second round, so a total of about $5 million.
And this is a Milwaukee region company.
It is indeed. It is indeed.
That's great. So, Dan, you and I have had conversations about this equity financing. That's what people think about when they think about growing a venture. But we all know that it's not just about equity risk investment. What other financing options are available for companies that are out there that have revenues and really want to jumpstart their growth? What are the options?
In our space, we've found that grant financing and other sources, foundation financing, other sources of financing, in addition to the $5 million of equity financing I mentioned, are absolutely critical. Absolutely critical for the obvious reason that allows us to leverage that $5 million into something dramatically and significantly greater. Also relevant in our space for a slightly less obvious reason, which is that we're pursuing new therapies in neuroscience, new ways to treat schizophrenia in a very complex, very expertise-laden space. What we get when we get NIH financing, for example, we've been very successful with the NIH, is we not only get that increased financial bandwidth, but we get that imprimatur of credibility and of excellence from the National Institutes of Health that we, frankly, would be difficult to get elsewhere.
That's great. Are banks anywhere in your scope sooner or later?
Sure.
To help your growth?
They are. It presents a trickier equation, as you know, for an early stage company like ours. We have valuable collateral in the form of intellectual property, but probably difficult to value for the third party. We're reaching a stage where revenue and medium-term revenue might be part of our reality, but that's a new and welcome development for us. For much of our history, we have not had that reality, and as you know well, that's part of the banking equation.
Yeah. So, Dan, before you started this particular company, you have other experience in raising capital and helping other people raise capital. Is that correct?
Sure. What's interesting from the perspective of my career is I've spent most of my career in life sciences, but in the large space, I spent many years at Abbott Laboratories. In the medium-large space, I was a member of the senior team of Shores Pharma, and then in various other small and mid-sized ventures. So there's a certain value in having seen these questions get addressed and answered from a variety of different perspectives, which has been my history. Sometimes allows one to understand with a little more accuracy the question that's going to be asked and the perspective of the party on the other side of the table.
So leaving aside the pharma, biotech, life sciences, and high tech in general, looking at companies of all kinds, including so-called low-tech manufacturers, which is one of the areas that Wisconsin is very strong in. What kinds of mistakes do you think entrepreneurs make? And I'm not talking about people at the idea stage, but people who actually already have revenues, and again, they want to scale up their growth. What are some of the mistakes that they make, and how might they avoid some of those?
Let me give you two, Dan, and they're closely related. The first, I think technicians, and if they're neuroscientists, this is certainly true, but I think technicians all the way down to the shop floor tend to be interested in complexity, tend to seek out complexity, particularly if it's an area that they've spent their entire careers wrestling with. Nothing is more intriguing and interesting and compelling to them than a very complex problem that they think they've solved. The business perspective, I think you can take the complexity model, the love and affection for complexity that I just described, and turn it on its head. What the commercial world wants to see, what your customer wants to see, what your financer wants to see is simplicity. And I have no particular desire to be impressed with your intellectual ability to solve a difficult problem. I think that's a uniform issue and problem across the entrepreneurial spectrum. Certainly, it's something I deal with on a weekly basis, but I suspect other entrepreneurs out there see it as well. And going to my second point, maybe part of a broader and larger dynamic, which is entrepreneurs in their passion and their focus tend to see the world from the inside out, tend to see the world looking at it through their lenses, and really that's a horrible discipline. What they have to do and what they ought to do is look at the world from their customers' perspective and make sure that they're not solving their problem, but they're solving their customer's problem.
I thought, Dan, that if you built a better mousetrap, that the world would be the path to your door. Are you telling us that that's not true?
I think in certain cases, Dan, provocative though that sounds, in certain cases that's not true. I think building a better mousetrap as seen from the customer's perspective and within the very practical framework of the customer's perception, going to price, going to feasibility, going to practicality, going to the degree to which that mousetrap can be implemented within the customer's system. If those boxes get checked as well, then the better mousetrap is a success. If they don't, it's not.
So it's really just a question of how the customer or the markets view things. And part of what I hear you saying is that it's better to be a problem looking for a solution than a solution looking for a problem. Don't be in love with your complexity with your product, but be in love with the market, with the pain, with the needs, and try and solve those needs or resolve those pains or frustrations.
That's exactly right, Dan. I think that's a great paraphrase, and I think another maybe slightly controversial point, but don't fall in love with your own idea to such a degree that you imagine that your solution is so beautiful that it will do all the work itself. There are lots of subsidiary questions that are going to have to be successfully answered in order for your solution to work, no matter how beautiful it is, no matter how elegant it is.
So now I'm going to get to ask a few more provocative questions. This has more to do with Milwaukee and Wisconsin, or I'd say southeast Wisconsin. I'm not sure that the world would say this is a hub, this is a destination to grow a company's, life sciences company, for example. Why Milwaukee?
Yeah, it's a great question, Dan. And I mean the answer for us, and I suspect the answer for other Southeast Wisconsin-based companies, is that's where the technology was. We're very proud to have accessed technology out of the University of Wisconsin system and out of Marquette University, which explains our location. But if we were, there's a second part to that answer, I think. If we were in Boston or New York or Silicon Valley, lots of issues would manage themselves. The ready availability of talent, the ready availability of ideas in the atmosphere. We get that here, but we have to work for it. We have to realize that we're not at the center of the universe. We have to acquire the expertise and that interplay of ideas. The great news is it can be created. I mean, this call is an example of that. You can create networks irrespective of geography. If you're in a place like we are, you have to do that, and it's simply another thing that you have to think about. But you know,
and is it fair to say that you feel that you're on the right track in terms of bringing the talent in, bringing the other kinds of resources together?
Yeah, we've done, and really by we I mean the team has done an exceptional and extraordinary job of exactly that. We have a world-class team. We have a world-class collection of talent. I suspect it's been a little more difficult to bring that team together here, but to be honest with you, there are also a number of dramatic advantages we have being here that we wouldn't have if we were in Cambridge, or we wouldn't have if we were in San Francisco.
Give us one or two examples of those advantages.
We can operate so much less expensively. As an example, we get access to and have a voice within the community that I think we would be lost amidst a great number of peers in another market and have no such problem here.
Yeah, got it. I've promised everybody, including our audience, to keep these hangouts short and sweet, so we're going to sign off in just a minute. Elmer, do you have any comment or question that you'd like to throw into the mix here?
Dan, I think did a great job addressing, the perspective of growth in this region. I appreciate you highlighting the potential that the area offers.
Elmer, your voice is breaking. Elmer, your voice is breaking up, so I'm gonna leave you for now just because of some connectivity issues. I want to remind everybody this is Scale Up Milwaukee. This is a platform for, This is a platform for growth. This is a platform for scaling up companies, for making an impact on marketplaces, on investors, on employees, and on the society. Remember, this is brought to you with love from Scale Up Milwaukee. I'll thank our partners, the Greater Milwaukee Committee, American Express Open, the WEDC, the Mayor's Office, the County Executive, UWM, and all of our other local partners for making Milwaukee a place that you can actually grow a significant company. So Dan Lawton, thank you very much. We're signing off now.